Middle East, the 1st century AD. When for the 3rd year in a row the sweltering wind drove and drove the hot sand, the great dry land had come, the hot desert, which had not reached the gates of the city before, now almost engulfed it. Thirst pervaded the houses, to remain in which was to die. To leave in search of new land also meant death. But the desert stretched ahead, white and suffocating, gave hope that somewhere there was a limit. The men went on and on. The scalding air tore at their lungs. The strength was leaving the sturdy ones, and the wise lost their minds. And when they thought death had come to them, they saw water. It's worthless because it's priceless. It serves the world because it is free. Its power is in its gentleness, its perfection in its simplicity. It has one name but many guises, the Roman scholar Pliny the Elder said of water in the 1st century AD. Life is water, time is water, eternity is water. Its greatness is undeniable, but it is senseless to comprehend it. Humans don't know what they're dealing with. People, that's what distinguishes people. Very curious. They ask themselves questions. They seek answers. Science and humanity have changed a lot in the last 2,000 years. Why? Because answers to many questions have been found. One of the controversial questions has always been how water is related to life, since they seem to be inseparable. All living things on Earth are water structures, and a human being is 70% water. As we age, the amount of water in our body decreases. Life goes away with water, but water itself does not disappear without a trace. Tiny droplets of warm vapor float upward from the Earth. As they cool, they get heavier and fall to fill the Earth with life-giving moisture again. The man we call a genius today, Leonardo da Vinci, wrote in his diary in the 15th century. His last words before his death were, "I feel like water in a river." Leonardo da Vinci worshipped the amazing properties of water. Water has an extraordinary heat capacity. Absorbing the sun's rays, it prevents it from burning the planet. When it freezes, water doesn't shrink like other liquids, it expands. As a result, water pipes often burst in winter. But not trees. Willow branches, for example, can withstand freezing to -250 degrees Celsius. And there are no devastating effects after thawing. The amazing properties of water are the reason why life exists on Earth, but all that may soon be coming to an end. Geophysical researchers have some bad news. The Earth is heating up. In 200 to 300 years, its surface temperature could rise to 400 degrees Celsius. There will be no water left on Earth. No water, no life. Understand, it's very simple. It's so simple. No water, no life. But before turning into a desert, many continents will be flooded. First, the Greenland glacier will melt, then others. The greenhouse effect will reign on the Earth for weeks. From life-giving moisture, water will become a destructive force. This process was predicted by researchers before it began to have an impact. They said it would happen sooner or later. The big question that arises is, what is the cause of this? The results of experiments conducted in many countries around the world have shown water responds to any impact, perceives everything that happens in the surrounding space, as a consequence of which the character of water and its behavior change. But what causes water to destroy? Mainly gases, carbon dioxide and methane, all that we create through industrial activities. This is the so-called man-made factor. Every year our civilization emits 5 gigatons of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. We pollute the water. The second version is cosmic influences, the most dangerous of which is the increase in the integral flux of solar radiation, which deprives water of oxygen. Space is becoming increasingly hostile to water. There is one more thing in the world which somehow is not very accepted to talk about. It's the effect on water by the negative, spiritual energy of people, and only people. In 365 BC, the ancient Greek philosopher Plato wrote, "Man is a land-dwelling, wingless, emotional creature, susceptible to knowledge based on reasoning. And that is his main sadness and advantage. Plato was convinced that, unlike other living beings, we are capable of knowing the meaning of life and influencing the world around us through our consciousness. But exactly how consciousness relates to the physical world is the great unsolved problem of science. I have undertaken many years of research and have concluded that through water, any water perceives and responds to human consciousness. And I can prove it. Japanese researcher Masaru Emoto was the first to demonstrate the phenomenal information sensitivity of water. Test samples were subjected to various kinds of non-mechanical influences. Then they were rapidly frozen in a cryogenic chamber. The resulting crystals were photographed at 200 times magnification. This is how the water reacted to the words, "You're beautiful." This is how it reacted to the phrase, "You're a fool." This is how the water reacted to the word compassion. Indifference. This water was asked, "Let's do it." This one was told, "Do this." The Japanese researchers' conclusion: negative words, emotions, thoughts, intentions destroy the life-giving properties of water. We are trying to prove or at least test whether Dr. Emoto's philosophy, his discovery or explanation is true, that his philosophy can be scientifically validated. For 5 years, the scientists have been investigating water crystals. We exposed the water to different music, and we saw differences between Mozart and Bach. However, the water's response to the same piece listened to at different times also had differences. The crystals were never repeated with absolute precision. Neither did each of the snowflakes that had fallen to Earth over millions of years. The problem is that water reacts to absolutely everything. We can see that with a solar eclipse or a full moon. The patterns of the samples turn out completely different from those obtained on any other day of the month. But even after the scientists created stable conditions in the lab, the water continued to change its appearance. Because I myself also have a huge impact on the water. The main problem, of course, is that the person in the lab is part of the whole process. In Comoros, old people tell a story like this. It happened that the water left the area for a while. There was only one rich man in the whole area who had a well, and people bought water from him. A good man named Bayezid came to fetch water, and he saw a stray dog near that dwelling, which was thirsty. The dog looked at Bayezid, and he felt that he must help it. This time he bought more water than he needed and paid twice as much. And while he was carrying the water to the unfortunate animal, he kept thinking about what a noble and selfless act he had just done for the sake of the dog, the animal. The proud Bayezid put the water in front of it, but she would not drink it and turned away. The man's pride changed the quality of the water. Here's an example. A mother gives a baby a bottle. If the mother is in a sad mood, the water will be changed. There is a reason for this. Apparently, someone put just such unusual properties into the molecules of water. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth was void and empty, and darkness over the abyss, and the Spirit of God was upon the water. In other words, in the beginning there was a divine plan, of which only the water knows so far. If there was water before the beginning of creation, then all the laws written by God before the creation of the world are water. For our planet, water is the elixir of life, but the fact that it holds the secret of the universe, the key to unraveling it, is an interesting way of posing the question. Why is water the same and the world so different? Why does any seed grow only in the presence of water, and always in sequence, first a sprout and only then a tree? Step by step, scientists began to come to a sensational conclusion close to the story of the creation of the world, set out in the Bible. Life from elementary particles to galaxies in the universe is a program, a record, that is, a directed information process associated with the unique properties of water, having learned which a person will be able to change the picture of the world. Now it has become plausible, probable, possible. We can change water by imprinting information. At the same time, the chemical composition of water may remain the same. What changes is the structure. The structure of water is very mobile. Molecules break apart every billionth of a second. However, within this chaos, there are stable zones of order, clusters. They can be compared to lattices. When one water molecule leaves the lattice, another takes its place. The molecules leave, the lattice remains, like a strict record in a changing environment. It's a cluster memory. New information, new cluster, new record in the water. The future holds both danger and opportunity, like the Chinese symbol, right? Danger and opportunity. Opportunity, of course, is wide open. In the course of many years of research, Russian scientists discovered that in the liquid phase of water, there are para and ortho molecules that unite into para and ortho ensembles that resemble living and dead water in their behavior. A para molecule may not rotate, an ortho molecule always rotates. Because of its rotational spectrum, the ortho molecule is more active and sociable because it is the one that interacts with other substances. What happens if you change the ratio of para and ortho molecules in water? Reduce the number of dead, that is passive molecules, and increase the number of active, that is living ones. It turned out that it would be the same water, but with completely different phenomenal properties that can be used in the field of medicine. For example, dissolving kidney stones. Kidney stones have so far been dissolved under a microscope. But let's imagine that if we could reliably enrich water, or actually get a pure fraction of water, earth water, then perhaps kidney stones would dissolve in our body, and we wouldn't have to do the most complicated surgeries to remove those kidney stones. And this is just the beginning. It's very important to realize that this is just the beginning of our capabilities. In biology, the experiment of growing a lysozyme crystal in distilled water is well known. A tiny fraction of ordinary chicken protein is added to the vessel, which subsequently grows a pyramid that resembles the pyramid of Cheops with steps and a square section of terraces, having increased the number of mobile orthomolecules in water. The experiment was repeated. The result was another crystal, also in the form of Cheops pyramid. But the structure of terraces was not rectangular cross-section, but it was in the form of a continuous spiral ring. So, controlling the behavior of molecules of ordinary distilled water, scientists, in fact, created a new reality. It is already an experimental fact for us that a different material has grown, in fact, a new material science. We are able, capable, and must change reality. In their search for new H2O possibilities, scientists at the U.S. Argonne National Laboratory placed ordinary distilled water under supercritical conditions, carbon nanotubes with a diameter of 10 to the -9th degree of a meter. The nanotube can neither be felt to the touch nor seen without a powerful microscope. In other words, the water was compressed, its molecules stretched and lined up one by one. Thus, a quasi-dimensional and quasi-liquid state of water was obtained. Water in this state, remaining as usual distilled water, behaved as a new, unknown to science substance. It did not freeze even at a temperature of -269 degrees Celsius. Not only that, water gained superfluidity, the ability to move rapidly to huge distances in this scale. Another door to a new reality opened before mankind. Water in the supercritical state is very active. That is, it can dissolve, decompose very complex poisonous substances into elementary components. If there is chemical waste, some other waste, the best way to get rid of it is to treat it with supercritical water. That is, there is a huge amount of water potential. If we knew more about water and used it as medicine, we might not know terrible diseases, and environmental problems and global warming problems might have been solved if people knew more about water. And economic problems might have been fixed if people had better harnessed the power of water. In the 7th century BC, the Chinese Emperor Qi asked learned men, "What does the emperor need to know about the world he is destined to rule?" The sages answered the emperor, "It is enough to know water." In the kingdom of Qi, the water is swift and deep, so its people are greedy and brave. In the kingdom of Chu, the water is soft and clear, so its people are light-hearted but fearless. In the kingdom of Yu, the water is heavy and dark, so its people are dull, sickly, and dirty. In the kingdom of Qin, the water is slow-moving and has a lot of silt, so its people are cunning, fierce, and prone to intrigue. In the kingdom of Song, the people are simple and truthful. There, the water is light, swift, and pure. Several decades ago, the presence of pharmaceutical substances was discovered in the tap water of the United States. They get into the pipes for a variety of reasons. Some people get rid of expired or unused medications by flushing them down the drain. And because many large cities around the world have closed-loop water treatment systems, the drugs are constantly circulating through the water supply. We did a study to see what problems might arise from this. We found that the content of these substances in our drinking water is just as tiny as if an aspirin tablet were dissolved in a huge pool of water. You get about 1 particle per trillion. So the content is simply negligible. It's certainly a cause for concern, but not a cause for panic. A different view is held by scientists studying the effects of homeopathic medicines. In homeopathic preparations, the original chemical substance disappears during the dissolution process. Nevertheless, at the end, the solution retains the properties of the original liquid. For the proof, 3 laboratory vials are filled with distilled water. In the first vial, aspirin is dissolved to the point where not a single aspirin molecule remains in the experimental sample. In the second vial, sodium chloride is dissolved until it disappears. In the third, lithium. This is again pure water. All 3 test samples are frozen at -273 degrees. It's difficult to work with a liquid because it's in motion all the time. But freezing this liquid will bring me closer to research. Tiny bubbles that appeared during the process of diluting the liquids froze into the body of the crystals. Void formed inside the bubbles. Now the samples are irradiated, and it's through the void that the photons of light pass. They are caught from the back of the crystal, and the result is recorded. Missing aspirin, sodium chloride, lithium. The intensity of the light in each case ends up being different. The information remains in the water. It's just not clear what's holding that information. And we believe it's part of the gases in the form of nanobubbles, sort of like a product ID, a fingerprint. It can be compared to letters scrawled in sand. Inside the letters is a void. There is no sand there, but there is information, a record of a word. The word has meaning. We read it and perceive it. Moreover, if we return the sand to its original state, that is, erase the word on the sand, it will remain in our memory. So it is with water. The substance goes away, the essence of the substance remains, and invisible nanobubbles rapidly spread the received information through the body, changing the properties of our internal water. And in the same way, we can change the water inside us with negative emotions, and then our whole world, the way we see it, will change, not for the better, will become sadder, gloomier, because all our senses, hearing, smell, vision, work through water. If the water inside us is pure, we see the world pleasant and bright. We can't yet give a clear explanation of all this, but I believe we certainly can, if our stupidity doesn't kill us. In one of the closed laboratories in Germany in the 60s of the 20th century, there was an inexplicable accident. The laboratory assistant dropped a sealed ampoule of potent poison into a vessel of distilled water. Not wanting to publicize her mistake, she left it lying in the water. The ampoule was not discovered until 3 days later. Since it was airtight and posed no particular danger, it was removed and the incident was forgotten. Subsequently, laboratory mice were given this water. 10 minutes later, the mice were lying dead. The water was immediately subjected to the most rigorous analysis. Chemically, it was found to be perfectly pure. That is, the water had absorbed the negative information from the poison without even coming into contact with it. It's unbelievable. For a scientist, it's just on the verge of being fantastic. However, if you think about the phenomena in terms of the wave motion of water, there is nothing incomprehensible. There was once a man who was blind from birth, says an ancient Indian parable. And a wise man told him how beautiful the sunlight was. The blind man became interested. He asked, "What is this light of which you speak? I have no idea what it could mean. Can I hear the light?" The sage replied, "No, of course not. Light is beyond the reach of the human ear." The blind man said, "Then let me taste it." "Oh, no," replied the sage, "you cannot taste the light." "I suppose I can't catch the smell of it either," smiled the blind man sadly. "Yes, that is so," said the sage, "but I am taking you to a lake in which the sun is reflected every day. Having bathed in this lake at least once, you will understand everything. Water is extremely susceptible due to the fact that it perceives a very wide range of different kinds of fields, radiation and particles. It has long been known from physics that our world is a set of countless waves and vibrations. Vibrating air touches our ears with sound waves. This is how we hear. The ripples of the electromagnetic field are perceived by our eyes as light. This is how we see. Beneath our feet, like a giant living organism, the earth pulsates, vibrating in the mighty waves of the gravitational field. This is how we exist. In the immense ocean of microscopic and gigantic rhythms, everything, space, matter, vibrates, but it vibrates with different frequency. For many years I have been working with water. This work consists of transmitting vibrations into water so that we can observe how the water responds to these vibrations. From the dropper, we gently drip a little water. 1, 2, 3. The researcher turns on a generator of low sound frequencies. The range is from 20 to 120 Hz. These are very weak frequencies, but the water doesn't just hear them, it changes its shape. It's kind of a clear example that water can be changed, transformed through very weak signals, which can also be human speech, people's intentions, their faith. The frequency changes, and different form emerges. The change doesn't happen in 5 or 6 seconds, like in our heads when we're trying to understand something. Water reacts to new information instantly, and immediately converts it into a form. Distance plays no role in this case. Let's say you are thinking about me, and you are furious, and you are in Moscow, and I am in Rome. This rage that you have in your soul affects your tissue fluids and also mine. In science, we would call it quantum entanglement, which means instantaneous transmission of signals and information, and resonance, which is how we receive feedback. And we can say that water plays a fundamental role in this respect, because water is able to oscillate at any frequency. Outgoing oscillation and instantaneous response, external stimulus and internal response of water. Does this mean that the system of the universe, thanks to water, works as a single pulsating organism? Our head is not enough to accommodate this fact, and no device can calculate the cause and effect relations existing in our reality. How everything is arranged, how material and immaterial interact. The book of Genesis says, "And God said, Let there be a firmament in the midst of the water, and let it separate the water from the water. And God created the firmament, and separated the water that is under the firmament from the water that is above the firmament. And God called the firmament the sky, above which, according to the Bible, are the highest spiritual spaces, and below the material world familiar to us. The vector of the human soul is inherently directed toward the upper waters. The firmament is what holds the soul to the lower waters, and it became so, including all levels of physical nature." From the memoirs of the famous traveler Marco Polo. Day before sailing from Constantinople, and what happened was this. Even yesterday, there were a lot of jellyfish in the harbor. They were slowly rippling around the ship, and suddenly every last one of them disappeared. By morning, a huge cloud crawled out of the east instead of the sun, and a storm broke out, throwing ashore many of the inhabitants of the Great Sea. But not jellyfish. The jellyfish creatures had swum in advance away from the shore and there plunged to the depths. With no heart and no brain, they knew exactly how the water would behave. Probably because they're 99.9% water themselves. So, this water, it is literally living water, no less alive than you and me. This water remembers, naturally, because a jellyfish, like any other creature, has instinct. It has reflexes. This water knows how to feed. This water knows how to defend itself. But if we take and squeeze all that water out of the jellyfish, and remove that 0.1% of the substance that is not water, we get just distilled water, which does not have any of these properties. We haven't thought about what form water is in a living organism. If you think about it, if you think about the cells of your body, the cells are filled with boundary layers, very small spaces between the solid surface and the water. An upper and lower layer of water separated by a solid surface. Upper and lower layer. In science, this is what water in living organisms is called, separated boundary water. The question is how this boundary water can affect human life and existence. In a sense, the whole creation of the world, including the division into lower and upper waters, is done because it is God's plan that in order to create a world, a dynamic world, there must be tension in it. And we found that the boundary water has a negative charge, but it is equalized by a positive charge outside the layer. So it turns out that there is a negative charge in one layer and a positive charge in the other layer. When there are negative positive charges, you get a rechargeable battery. Another thing is that you can't get electricity from this plus to this minus immediately. But if you put such a micro battery in an electric field, it will somehow line up in it. Every year, migratory birds travel great distances on their way from Central Europe to Africa. The birds are able to fly without rest for about 100 hours. During this time, they fly about 2,000 kilometers, making an average of 6 million wingbets. Ornithologists have calculated that their energy reserves must run out hundreds of kilometers before reaching their destination. Every year, thousands of birds make this flight without falling from exhaustion. Scientists believe this is due to the fact that the boundary water of living organisms is affected by the sun. Simply put, sunlight recharges the battery pack. Research has also shown that the power of this battery depends largely on what we drink. It doesn't take much energy for our bodies to process plain, clean water because plain water readily converts to a boundary water state. In order to turn any beverages, including tea and coffee, into boundary water, the body needs to put in much more effort. The less water a person drinks, the faster they get tired. Sunlight and plain water, they have to become one. It's the best kind of energy possible. When you go outside, you feel more energetic because you get more radiant energy from the sun. While observing the sun, NASA researchers discovered that sound waves, a kind of noise, were emanating from the heart of the glowing ball. Scientists recorded it. It's like a bell. If you strike a bell, it makes a sound, it rings, and the sun makes a sound in almost the same way. To the human ear, this sound has no harmony. However, when one of the recordings was given to water to listen to, it showed a beautiful crystal with diverging rays like the sun. Why is it so beautiful? Because there is a special force in nature that creates harmonious structures. The scientists took 2 test samples of water. One was influenced by Mozart's music, the other by the sound of a mountain stream. More perfect crystals turned out in the second case. Nature is always perfect. The question is where the structural plan of nature comes from. Thin threads in a sticky web, fanciful petals in a fragrant flower, green leaves on a knotty tree branch. What I see in nature, said Albert Einstein, the founder of modern theoretical physics, is like a magnificent design that we can grasp only superficially. We can see the visible. To notice the visible, the rest is a mystery that man wants to solve, but cannot. It is something unearthly or super-earthly, spiritual or divine. Whatever it is called, it is still unexplored in our world. This is something that is definitely also in man. Is in man from God. It is our soul. The world is divided into upper and lower waters, the spiritual part and the material part. In the same way man is organized. And water is what tries to unite the material and the spiritual. And only water has the power to do that. No laboratory in the world yet has an instrument capable of measuring the human soul. Its existence is indicated by religion and water. Tears of joy and tears of grief are usually the same in chemical composition, but always different in structure. Water is like a lie detector. We can lie to ourselves, but if we take a drop of our saliva, put it on glass, examine it under a microscope, we can see how structured, balanced, or eccentric we are. In test samples under the microscope, we can see how different diseases reveal themselves in a dried drop of blood. Either it is great chaos, and that is obvious, or it is excessive order, over-ordering. Everything is so ordered that one notices how unnatural it is. There's too much order. What is needed is chaos. In scientific language, the concept of coherence, cohesion, is used to refer to the ordered state of something. One example is music. If 7 notes are arranged in a certain coherence with each other, taking into account the duration and strength of the sounds, a work will be born that makes us empathize. Weakening of coherence, we perceive as a fake sound, and its complete loss as a hum that irritates our ears. This is how chaos manifests itself. Chaos and order. To these two extremes correspond 2 diseases. Oncology, in which incoherence dominates, and sclerosis, in which maximum order is observed. In the latter, the living organism is incapable of change. It is locked in a single oscillation that does not change. This is why living matter cannot be absolutely coherent or incoherent. In a chaotic incoherent state, each water molecule exists on its own. The molecules are constantly bumping into each other while remaining isolated, lonely, and unable to share their electrons. The picture changes completely when a molecule enters into a concerted interaction with its neighbors. They begin to move in a single impulse without interfering with each other, like dancers on stage in unison. And each of the molecules is ready to become a donor, to share electrons and at the same time not to lose its strength, but to gain additional energy in order to give it away again. In a coherent state, the main rule is to give back. If 2 people listen it, that is, are in harmony with each other, they can no longer be strangers or enemies. There are special water places where something like this happens. People, bathing, associate with each other. Such places are often called sacred. In Israel, this is the Jordan River. In India, the Ganges. If you drink water from the Ganges, you will surely go to heaven. And the most important thing is to drink some of this water before you die. Only in this way, according to legend, will all our dreams come true. I am a scientist, and I believe that we need knowledge proven by experiment. Indians en masse just believe. They recite prayers and take a dip in the waters of the Ganges in hopes of being cleansed of sins as well as cured of serious illness. It would seem that after all this, there should be an epidemic. But it does not happen. What is the issue? Incoherence. Coherence appears in the water between many people. That's what neutralizes the bacteria. To cause harm, the germs must be stronger than that cohesion. So if the level of coherence increases, the danger of being affected by germs goes down. And similarly, collective coherent evil can destroy good. And we are the only ones who can do that. We can do good or bad because we alone have the ability, as the Creator, to make decisions. And the Lord God said to Noah, "The end of all flesh has come before its face, for the earth has been filled with wickedness from them. And behold, I will bring a flood of water upon the earth. And he told Noah to build an ark. At first, the rain was only a sprinkling and could still turn to good. This ancient event is described in one way or another in every one of the religions of the world. And when Noah stepped out of the ark, God promised him to restore the order of things and never again destroy the human race. As a sign of this promise, a rainbow shone in the heavens, God's covenant to people in fulfillment, according to the Bible and the commandments of the necessary minimum entrusted to all mankind. Do not blaspheme, do not steal, do not kill, and the most important of all commandments, love your neighbor. In August 2008 on Lake Baikal, the deepest lake of the planet with the most active and clean water, an event took place that united local residents, researchers from different countries of the world and scientists. People addressed the lake and the world with sincere words of love and gratitude. Scientists tried to analyze this whole process. We put a sensor that registered the change in the state of the space. The sensor stood next to this place where it all took place. I purposely put it in such a way that no one came close to it. No visible changes were happening around it. The weather was roughly stable. Scientists had to find out whether positive thoughts, good intentions, and positive emotions of people would coincide with Baikal water and the frequency of oscillations, and whether any changes would occur in the surrounding space as a result of this interaction. This moment has already been worked out quite well with the device, but every time I perceive it with such a childish surprise that indeed, first of all, people can change the state of space with their emotions, with their feelings. That in itself is amazing. And the second thing, of course, is that this can be registered. It was all reflected on the graph. Capacitive sensors recorded significant changes in the ionic composition of the atmosphere and geomagnetic factors. Immediately after the ceremony ended, a dramatic increase in energy in space was recorded, and a rainbow appeared in the sky. A double beautiful rainbow. It can be taken as an accident, as a mere coincidence, but I always believe that there is no such thing as mere coincidence. It is obvious to us that with a strong enough spiritual influence, spiritual tension, it is possible to change the material world, for there is no boundary between the spiritual and the material. After all, at the first stage, the world was one, everything in it was in one substance, and that substance is water. When tension was passed through the water divided into two parts, the water united. And in the same way, eternal water meets our ordinary water, forming the creation of the world. Water contains all the mysteries of life. It allows us to understand our place in the world, our purpose, why we even live in this world. Water is soft and malleable, says an ancient Chinese treatise. It can wash away a person's filth. This is where its humanity comes in. When a vessel is already full of water, no more can be added. In this her justice is manifested. Water is constantly flowing and stops only where a level surface has already been reached. In this her fairness is manifested. Water is dark in appearance, but transparent in fact. In this its perfection is manifested. Water takes the shape of any vessel. In this is manifested the destiny of all things, the absolute. When we experience love, water takes the most beautiful form. Let us love, you and I, all of us. Let us live with love in our souls. Water is created to send this message, love and gratitude. The water responds to them. This is what God wants to say. When we discover something new in things we have known for a long time, the boundaries of our world expand. Now we know why you can't step into the same river twice. It changes every moment, which means every moment of our lives we too can make a difference. And simple water will spill from the sky to the earth with life-giving moisture. Thank you for watching. This channel is created because of your support. A special thank you to our sponsors. We really appreciate it. It's very important to us.